Each day, more and more people are listening to music on Spotify, and that's also true for podcasts. Next time you're on the Spotify app, make sure to follow Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond. Enjoy listening to Lou, his incredible guests, and all of the amazing episodes. Listen, follow, and share. Thrive Loud on Spotify.
Ladies and gentlemen, prepare to witness the greatest happening in sport. Sudden Death Podcasting.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting into the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have a documentary storyteller, writer, and advocate for racial and gender equity. A member of the New York City Mayor's Gender Equity Commission, he's also an adjunct professor in social change journalism at the International Center of Photography in New York. He's also a principal for the Skoll Foundation. And I am truly honored to have this award-winning, thriving individual on the show today. Thrive Loud listeners, Jimmie Briggs. Jimmie, how are you today?
Hey, Lou. How are you doing? Doing pretty good today.
Well, it's right around our national holiday, July 4th. We're recording this weekend, and country's going through an interesting phase right now. Would you agree with me?
Absolutely, Lou. I mean, it's definitely lively right now.
I think it's great because I literally was juggling on what I could talk to Jimmie about, as Jimmie can obviously speak about the national conversation about race and racism in America. He has extensive experience talking about the opioid crisis and the war on drugs, gender inequity. There's so many things that we can cover. I think I want to rewind a little bit, help paint the listeners a picture, if you would, on really how this became your storytelling ability, how that became your main gig. A little rewind of the resume, if you would, Jimmie, just to help everyone get up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really been kind of an unforeseen journey. I mean, to be honest with you, man, I really, just kind of a very abbreviated bio. I did not expect to become a writer or storyteller journalist. I mean, at the outset, growing up in Missouri, I wanted to be a doctor for most of my childhood, and everything, all the classes I took, all the internships, all the summer internships were geared towards going to medical school eventually. But I just realized in college I had the opportunity to have a year abroad in Europe at a very momentous time for that region of the world. And it just really kind of opened my eyes to the possibility of not only traveling, but kind of witnessing history as it happens and sharing that history through my writing, through my storytelling skills.
Let's talk about some of the storytelling, and you've had some stories to tell. Very fittingly, you had also mentioned that you grew up in an area not too far away from Ferguson, Missouri, correct?
Yes,
I think
that's right. Yeah.
With what's going on today, and from the perspective that you have, not only from your view as a journalist, but you're also a Black male man living in America. You certainly can speak about what's going on today. And one of the things that we had spoken about the last time you and I had gathered with another larger group was starting to have a conversation. And that's what we wanted to have here. So can you help kick off the conversation, if you would, and really kind of take the temperature on where you things are at and why this is such an important time really in our history right now?
Yeah, I think you so much for the opportunity, Lou. I'm so glad to be with you this afternoon. I think, to your point, it's such a surreal time. To be sure, Lou, I mean, I've always, I've brought myself as a storyteller, as a journalist, I brought myself to the work. I mean, as an American, as a man, as an African-American man, and the historical, I would say the historical trauma and legacy that holds. I've always brought myself and seen myself in my stories. And I think now, as a country, we're facing this really kind of critical period. I mean, often, and we've heard it for sure. I know we've talked about this, and nationally, we hear this, this refrain that this is different. This time's different. Things are going to change, or change is coming, or that this is America's reckoning. And to be honest with you, Lou, I'm not sure about that. I think there's an opportunity right now. The confluence of COVID-19 and the inequities across race and gender and economic status that has revealed. Now you're layering in, kind of the racial lens to that through the tragic murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. I think this confluence of COVID-19, of America's history of racism, of the political divide, especially as we near November national elections. I think now, there's so much happening one time, domestically for sure, but also globally, that America has opportunity to reckon with its past and look forward to creating a counter narrative for the future. But I'm not sure yet, to be honest, I'm not sure yet if we're going to take it. I think we're just starting to have those conversations now.
It's interesting, by the way, and I'm with you. It's kind of like it's a little bit of like juggling a slinky back and forth, based on where the waves of motions are going. I'm laughing because this morning I was reading the sports headlines that FedEx is looking to ask the Washington Redskins after over 100 years to change the name of their team. And obviously you hear these stories about national monuments or locations of things from people who really were slave owners or were certainly racist in their practice, change things. Baseball is changing the name of the MVP trophy, which used to have Landis's name on it, who was well known of not allowing blacks to play Major League Baseball. So look, I think what's good here is these conversations are supposed to happen. And what's great is as a storyteller like yourself, it's kind of interesting because you're usually the one helping to tell the story. But meanwhile, the story is writing itself each and every day.
Yes.
So I guess what I'm curious about, as someone who really has the eye for it from when you first graduated college and got to check out Europe and see the world from that view, you're providing the lens for a lot of the viewers, for your listeners, your viewers, and the readers. This view is coming from every single angle. So I'm actually curious on how you're documenting what you're seeing.
Right. Well, that's a great question, Lou. It's interesting because, on this day, July 3rd, 2020, I see myself less of a journalist and more of an observer, maybe a messenger of sorts, but not traditional storytelling. Given the work that I'm doing now, my position at a foundation, my work with the New York City Commission on Gender Equity, my work as a teacher and lecturer, I try to bring all these threads of how I show up in the world to this moment, especially because I think you're right, Lou. I think history is kind of writing itself, but I think the danger is that if we don't actually kind of help guide how it's being written, this moment will be lost. I think we won't heed the lessons of the past. As a journalist, as a storyteller, I've always tried to write it, see the contemporary world through a historical frame. I'm always asking, how did we get here? How did we get here? What lessons should we have drawn from the past that weren't heeded? And how do we apply those lessons from the past to the moment so that we can move forward in a transformational way? You're right. The Redskins logo, Major League Baseball. I'm not diminishing the significance of what we're seeing in this moment, Lou. I do think they're cosmetic. I think these are the easy things that we can do. I mean, this is, frankly speaking, I don't think we've done the hard work yet. For sure, the marching, the protest, elevated the conversation to a level we have not seen probably in a generation at least. But I think we're still early in the process of really of addressing not only the systemic inequities that cross-cut, gender, race, ethnicity, geography, economic status, but also what was lost, what was I would say the damage done. And as an African American man, Lou, I think a lot about. I balance my hope for this moment, also with the grief that I feel like I carry, and I think many people carry for what was those people who were lost, those people whose lives were sacrificed, those people who, unlike George Floyd, their deaths weren't captured on video to be disseminated globally. How do we address that? How do we honor or recognize that trauma, those losses, that pain?
Yeah, it's interesting, Jimmie, because I'm not trying to draw a comparison here, but I think in there is a comparison in what I'm about to share as a way to do the deeper dive. And what you're saying is true. It's on the cosmetic front right now, but how do you get to the underlying problem? And I think there are some changes that have to be made, but there's another part that has to happen almost every day. And the comparison I was going to make was, I'm a Jewish American and of Jewish descent, and every year, whether it's for the Passover holidays or for the Holocaust remembrance, they retell the story of what exactly happened. And the reason that they retell the story of why it happened is that it never happens again. And I want to let you know that I don't think I appreciated it until I was much older, because I was a little kid. I'm like, oh, great, we get to hear the story again. But as you recognize how important it is to remember what was lost, how uncivil it was, how unfair, how a genocide taking place. These are things that need to have to be communicated over and over again, because the awareness will fade in time. So the hard work is the constant remembering of all of these people that have been improperly treated, and with a combination of some kind of change in the way police force is educated, the way we speak about gender, about race, about equality with each other, recognizing what's right and what the right history is. I think that's a whole myriad of stuff, and a lot of stuff to tackle. But I think it must always continue to be in the forefront of constantly reminding about these activities. So while it's happening right now, it's equally important a year from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now.
I agree. Yeah, Lou, thank you so much for that. It's so funny, man. I feel like you're synchronicity without even realizing it in some ways. I'm actually rereading a book, which I'd ordered last year, read it quickly, and because of this moment we're in, this period we're in, I hope it's more than a moment, but I'll say this period we're in, I'm rereading it now, but much more closely, and you may have heard of it. It's called Learning from the Germans. It's by an author named Susan Neiman, who is a Jewish American woman, a philosopher, researcher who lives in Germany now. And her book and her thesis is, which goes to what you're saying right now, Lou, is that America, if America's ever to really truly reckon and reconcile with its past and present, to take the path that the Germans took following the Holocaust, and I would say even are still taking. I think the Jewish community, I think there's a lot of close alliances, relationship historically, particularly around the civil rights movement between Jewish Americans and African Americans. I think one lesson, just frankly speaking, Lou, and I'm glad you brought it up, I think African Americans in this point of the moment should especially look to the journey of Jewish people historically, but especially after the Holocaust, because I think how the Jewish community reckons with and acknowledges the loss, not acknowledges, I would say, the evil that occurred, particularly around the Holocaust. I think it's so instructive, and I think it's so empowering. I think the African American community, by and large, is grappling with profound historical trauma, drawn since slavery to this day. Historical trauma, I think lateral oppression within the community because of the historical trauma, because of systemic racism and patriarchy and white supremacy. And I think there are a lot of lessons to be drawn from the Jewish American experience.
Okay, so the similarities here, yes, do exist, but we'll clarify this, that obviously this race and color and hatred from across all different platforms, I just don't understand. And it's one of those things that I think it just goes by what you believe and what has been fair. But for a white male to say I don't understand it versus a black male saying it is a completely different thing, because it's no different than someone saying it against a Jewish person being feeling anti-Semitism versus someone feeling racism. It's all wrong. And I think the steps on how you repeat it, you're right. You could learn the lesson about the constant education, which is one step. But then there's other bigger steps that have to be taken. And you can hear what they're protesting about. And that's the world we're in right now, which is definitely intense. My question to you is, as you said, like you're trying to grapple with your own personal feelings with it. And you're also trying to maybe even cover it from your writing point of view. Do you have a story that's maybe coming out of this, or something that's more of a creative piece that can add to the dialogue going forward? Not necessarily obviously factual, but some kind of way of taking this as part of your work.
That's a great question, Lou. Several things are happening for me creatively. One, I'm actually in the process of actually reframing one or two stories I've been working on, including a massive essay on the opioid crisis. But I'm actually reframing these stories through the lens of this moment, through the lens of
Okay.
race, through the lens of reckoning. Um, that's one aspect, looking at the war on drugs and opioid crisis, especially now, kind of looking at through this frame of the president, what it's bringing up as a country. I think additionally, beyond that, Lou, I really am finding myself um, writing, reflecting on a place I've never done before, which is the social critic. I mean, as a journalist, I've always prided myself on my ethic as a journalist in terms of recognizing, one, there's no such thing as objectivity. I bring myself, I bring my life experience to my work, but recognizing that subjectivity and reporting and doing the research to counter it. In this
Yeah.
case, the subjectivity is just too overwhelming. I mean, this, what's happening now in this country, this narrative, this, these everyday realities that we're talking about sometimes for the first time in some spaces. This is my life. This is my
Yeah.
community's life. This is my daughter's life. My brother's life. So I just feel like, rather than doing traditional reporting, I actually want to, kind of follow in the path of a James Baldwin and others who were astounding social critics of the time, to really kind of, I won't say have this gimlet-eyed view of what's happening, but really kind of push back, either push back or I would say emphasize, accentuate, uh, current threads that may or may not be, from my perspective, dissected enough.
Share with the listeners a little bit about the Skull Foundation, Jimmie. I think it's got a very unique premise, and what your specific role in working with the foundation is.
Sure. Well, it's funny though. It's a very new role for me. I just joined the foundation in early May, so I've been there just not quite 2 months actually. And it's my first venture, my first foray in this philanthropic space. I mean, I've worked for nonprofits, helping start one nonprofit in a certain case, but never worked on this side of the street, so to speak. The Skull Foundation has been on for 20 years. It was started by Jeff Skoll, Canadian entrepreneur, globally known for his advocacy and support of efforts around pandemics and health, as well as climate change and the environment. He also created Participant Films, which has produced just a profound slate of feature and documentary films from a social justice lens. My role at the foundation, Lou, is as a principal. So I, among others on a team of principals, work with the foundation to guide its investment into the most dynamic, innovative social entrepreneur and social entrepreneurial work that's happening around the world and in the United States.
That's great. It's really that combination of taking smart money and putting it to good causes.
Yes, absolutely. And they have a powerful track record. I mean, the people who've gotten the School Award, who've been recognized by the foundation and whose work has been elevated, are some of the, most dynamic, thoughtful, innovative people in the world.
Jimmie, I love asking writers that come on Thrive Loud this question. And it's really about a process question on the way that you work. I have seen people who literally can just sit down almost like a regimented schedule, like, put it to the clock, and they work a certain amount of time as they put in their effort. And there are others that creativity or the writing or the words come almost as it hits them. As it relates to your writing process and the way that you capture a story, do you have a certain system that you abide by?
That's a great question, Lou.
I'm only full of good questions for you, Jimmie. I prepared.
Yeah. No, you are. And I'll tell you, I'm sure, some editors would see what they would respond based on their working with me. They respond for me one way or the other. I think it's a mixture. To be honest with you, Lou, the more personal stories I can write very quickly. The stories where I don't have as much a direct connection, but I may have a personal passion for them, I'm very slow. I'm a writer, and I'm not alone in this. I'm a writer who, frankly speaking, Lou, the process of writing is painful for me. I mean, I'm a very slow writer traditionally. I think I write quite well, but I'm a very slow writer. I tend to over-report, over-research stories because I really want to kind of master a subject before I start putting words to paper or words on a screen. When I'm writing more personal essays or social critiques, I write very fast. Recently I did a story for a piece for Vanity Fair, which I wrote in 3 hours.
Wow.
I put my baby daughter. My wife was, she was taking a badly needed sleep. from being up from sleeplessness with our baby daughter, and I put the baby down for a nap, and I just cranked out a piece in 3 hours. And that when I'm writing, when the subject's close to my heart, I can just turn it out. The words flow. When I have to do more work to understand an issue, I won't say it's methodical, but all the time, but it's kind of drawn out and it's painful, you know.
Yeah. Jimmie, I love asking guests this question. With a successful career, well documented, someone that is really at the forefront on your A game, we do have off days, days when we're not kicking on all cylinders. On those days when you're not really thriving, what practice do you seek, or what individual do you seek out to get back on the thriving track?
I'm a news junkie, so I'm like flipping between news channels, even those whose point of view I do not agree with at all. But I'm always flipping between news channels, Lou. Voracious reader of the newspaper. I read 3 or 4 papers a day, early in the morning. I'm also someone who I love movies. I love films, especially classic movies and films from the mid 20th century, black and white. So I'll find myself a movie to watch on TV or my iPad and kind of go somewhere else with my head. I'll pull back and go to a place that's totally removed from whatever struggle I may be with creatively or professionally, in order to come back with fresh eyes, with rejuvenated energy around it.
I like it. Let's do this right now, Jimmie. Let's do the admin part of the show. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you, social media links or websites or places you want to direct them. We will put it all in the show notes. However, it always gets more engagement when they hear it directly from you.
I mean, the best way to find me, either through the Skoll Foundation at skoll.org. That's the website for the foundation. I'm on Instagram, and I think I shared with you my social media contact for that. My handles. Instagram. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm easy to find. Those are the main places, actually.
Gotcha. RATM 1969. I won't even ask what that decodes for.
I can tell you, actually.
Yeah. What does it mean? What does it mean?
RATM. It's very insiderish, but 1969 was my birth year. Okay. RATM stands for Rage Against the Machine, which was my favorite band in the 90s and early 2000s. So I always, that's like my homage to them. Yeah.
I like it. Okay. Permission to head down Fun Street with you, Jimmie, because I think you'll like some of these questions. We'll have a good time.
Absolutely.
All right. You love movies, as you said. Do you have an all-time favorite movie on your list?
All-time favorite, which I don't watch often because it's so long, but it's a movie from the early 40s. It's a French film by the director Marcel Carne, who also later on directed Black Orpheus. Called my favorite movie of all time is called Les Enfants du Paradis, The Children of Paradise.
Children of Paradise.
And it was made. French production was made under Nazi occupation, but it's a beautiful allegorical tale. And I saw it actually not long after I got out of college, and just fell in love with both the imagery and the language.
I like it. I like that. I like when I hear old time movies and they connect with you. And obviously you had this European experience too, which probably also really connected with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is going to be interesting and fun all at the same time. Or it won't. One of the two. We haven't quite figured it out yet. We've been playing around with it, Jimmie, and a lot of people like it, and it makes my editing team go crazy. So, all right, I'm going to ask you a bunch of quick questions. It's kind of like the speed round in Family Feud, and you just come back with the thing that connects most with you, as I say. Ready to rock and roll?
Yep.
Okay, speed round. Here we go. It's fun time down Fun Street. A song that gets you pumped up or really revved up.
1999 by Prince.
All right. A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Tacos.
A favorite dessert.
Pecan pie.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Working out. I don't work out enough. I mean, I work out a little bit, just not to the level I want to.
Gotcha. An activity you wish you did less of.
Honestly, I think I watch too much TV.
There you go. If you could, I thought it was going to be I have to stop watching the news channels. If you could snap your fingers and go anywhere in the world, where did you go?
Tangiers, Morocco.
Wow. Okay. What was it about that place that connects so much with you?
Well, I've actually never been there, Lou. I mean, I've romanticized it. One of the few places on my bucket list I've not been to, but just someone who loves reading literature. I remember reading Paul Bowles and reading about William S. Burroughs going there. I think the allure of the place intrigues me.
What I want to do to wrap this show up, which I think is the right way to do it from someone who sits in your seat, we're all trying to start the conversation. And that's what you and I did today. As it relates to this contentious, difficult topic, what do you want to recommend to our listeners as a way for them to think about how they could start the conversation?
I think several easy things have to happen, Lou. I mean, I think easy for me, but I mean, everyone is at a different place in their journey. I think first, have those uncomfortable conversations, confront your biases. And the conversations I'm talking about, Lou, are the ones in your home, in your places of faith, in your social circles, even on the job, if appropriate, when appropriate. I think, there's conversations we've avoided having for so long in society with our kids about what you said before, Lou, why people are oppressed or disenfranchised, discriminated against because of the color of their skin, because of their faith, because of the language they speak. I think we just have to start having those conversations to unpack our own biases, but also unpack, I would say, our apathy or inaction in the face of those biases or oppressions. And I don't think, I mean, you've seen this as well as much as I have. Now, we're seeing all these books on race and anti-bias and anti-racism, becoming bestsellers for the first time or for the second go around in some cases. And I think that's great. I mean, the movies that are being showcased on Netflix and Amazon and Hulu are great, or PBS, that's wonderful. But the reality is, at least from my perspective, Lou, we cannot read our way out of this. We cannot watch movies out of this. I mean, it's taken us 500 plus years to get to this place. And we have to acknowledge, and I think it's a very American thing, Lou, to think we can have the sunshine solution at the end of this story. That's not going to come for generations. I mean, it's taken 500 plus years to get to this place where we are now, where this level of divisiveness and anger are not just percolating, but they're at the surface. Read those books, watch those movies, have colleagues among people who look like you and those who don't, and be willing to be vulnerable, be willing to be uncomfortable or nervous, be willing to stumble in your conversations by the questions you may ask or responses you may give to questions. I mean, that's how we grow. That's how we transform ourselves. We cannot be afraid to go someplace to create a narrative than the one we're living in now.
Jimmie Briggs, great words, great writer. Truly an honor to have you on the program today. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks for the opportunity, Lou. It's so great to talk to you again. Appreciate the conversation.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com. Follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Thrive Loud. Check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.